Okay everyone, so this week we're going to discuss electric fencing in the best way I know how, and to be able to give you a little bit of more background on some different items that we deal with related to electric fencing, and then we're going to go through, we'll actually build a section and show you how that's actually set up. Hopefully take away some of the misconceptions surrounding electric fence. Gallagher has helped us with this lab in years past. They've come out and assisted us. They've given us products over time to show you guys, and hopefully again you guys really do gain a better understanding of electric fence by the end of today. Gallagher is probably one of the largest companies out there in regards to electric fencing. There's a lot of other companies that still exist. We have one product that's a Patriot brand. Gallagher is home in New Zealand, and when I was in New Zealand, all over the place you see chargers and products that were developed by Gallagher. So very sound company, great technology that they have within them, and again we'll give you a little bit more of a background on many of their products throughout today. And so really we might first discuss why we might use electric fencing. And so there's three main reasons that we might use electric fencing in a setup. One of those might be an offset, and so maybe we build that 4-board wood fence, or maybe we do a woven wire fence, but we don't do a top board, and our horses are maybe more prone to lean over the top of that, try to graze that grass on the other side, start to stretch your fence out a little bit. Maybe we're just going to put a top wire as an offset up top, and so we'll look at a lot of different insulators here and a bit different types of wire, but this is something that would show you this offset, and so if you can see that here, this is basically going to snap onto a T-post and then allow us to, again, literally have an offset for that wire. Another reason that we might do electric fencing is more of a portable scenario or solution, and so one of those might be to surround a hay area that we don't want our horses getting into. Perhaps another is to just subdivide a pasture for rotational grazing. Maybe we want to put a little electric fence around our horse trailer at a rodeo or a show. And so there's a lot of portable methods, and all those may look very different from one another. And the last would be just a permanent fence. Some people all over the country, all over the world, use electric fencing as a permanent fencing method. Okay, we discussed that 4-board wooden fence. We discussed that high tensile polymer, or that woven wire, or this pipe fence that we have surrounding our properties here. Electric fence is another suitable option as well. Many people will put up something like high tensile that we discussed, or even some of the high tensile polymers, and electrify that. Okay, and so those are some reasons that we might use electric fencing. I want to start off today by also talking about those main individual components, and there's three main components that we're going to discuss with electric fencing, and you need to have a good grasp of those components before you go to install anything. And so let's go ahead and look at this picture right here, and let's discuss those main three components. Okay. And so first, when we're looking at this picture, you can see at the top here we have the energizer, and that's something that could be a number of different scenarios. The one we're going to use today that I'll show you here momentarily is a solar powered energizer. These are very common today. You can put them on the top of a T-post. You could put them in a lot of other scenarios on your farm or ranch, but they're great. They charge themselves up. They'll stay for weeks without sun and still electrify your fence. Okay. Another one of those would be something that's DC, runs off of a battery. Okay, much like your truck battery, you can put that on the ground, hook up a DC charger to that. And then last but not least would be your AC chargers that plug into a wall outlet. Maybe you've got a barn nearby, you can plug the energizer into the barn, and then you can take it out of the barn and go electrify your fence. And so that first piece is that energizer. We'll talk here in a minute about having the right size energizer when I show you this one right here that I've got today. The next piece that you would see under that, really number 2, is that fence system. Okay, and so that fence system really consists of the wires that are connecting across all of your posts. Okay, there's two ways of doing this. Majority of the time, the traditional way is it's an all hot system. Okay, and so really, as long as you've got a scenario where you've got good grounding and you've got enough moisture content, you don't have insanely dry soil, everything is a traditionally all hot system, meaning all of those wires on your fence are truly hot from the energizer. Okay, we can talk more about that all hot versus that hot ground system momentarily. And then the last last piece that's very, very important, the last component of our electric fence system that you see there down on the bottom is our grounding, okay? Grounding is so extremely important, and I'll talk to you kind of about the requirements that surround grounding itself. And so those are the main three components that we have surrounding any electric fence system, okay? And so now I've got you back here. Let's go ahead and discuss what I've got for you for a charger today. And so this that you'll see is just a small solar powered charger. This is a S10 model made by Gallagher. This is something they rate at 0.1 joules, and we'll talk about what that means here in just a minute. Just a small unit, okay? Could do several acres if it's all completely clean. Once you start getting weeds up on it, it greatly diminishes the amount of reach of that electric fence. But we're going to talk about this S10 unit today. Again, you could get this in a DC unit, you could get this in an AC unit inside the barn. Inside this, you can take this screw apart, and again, before you even use it, you have to take it apart and then connect the actual terminals to that battery. That battery is then recharged with that solar energy, okay? And so that's our Energizer that we have. One thing when you guys are purchasing an Energizer is that you need to do so based on joules, not voltage, okay? This is always a common misconception when you're going out and you're buying a Energizer that suits your needs, okay? And so let's look at this picture right here, okay? This is a picture that basically attributes joules to the horsepower of a tractor, okay? And so when we look at RPMs, that would be the equivalent of volts, okay? Both this lawnmower and this massive tractor can both run at 3,100 RPMs, okay? But that's very, very different from the horsepower. This massive tractor that you see over here might be a lot bigger in terms of horsepower. And when we look at an actual example, you know, say we've got a 300 horsepower tractor sitting over here to the left, and our 30 horsepower tractor sitting over here on the right. Again, they're both running at 2,100 RPMs. And so if you're looking to fence over 10 miles, okay? It's joules that you need to be looking at, not volts. Now let's talk a little bit about our grounding system, okay? So we've mentioned our Energizer. Today we're gonna use that solar one. We said there's DC, there's also AC Energizers. We mentioned that electric fence system. We'll talk about that traditional hot only versus that hot ground system. We mentioned a little bit about grounding, but I wanted to go into more detail with that. When it really relates to grounding, it's extremely important that you have a good grounding system in, okay? For purposes of today, I'm probably only going to put one ground rod in just for the effort because it's only a demonstration. This is a package that you can buy that basically has your 3 ground rods in it. These are all zinc or galvanized ground rods. We no longer suggest or recommend copper. And then within this, it also has a grounding wire that you can connect each rod to and a number of clamps. And so all within this, you have a complete grounding system as well. And so let's take a look at this diagram that would show you recommendations on how to set up that grounding system, okay? And so when we're going to set up a grounding system, we're going to use those 3 rods that I just mentioned to you guys. And then really from there, we want to make sure that they are 6 feet in length and a minimum of 10 feet between the rods themselves. We will put the entire rod into the ground, hammer it down. We'll use a T-post pounder here momentarily. We'll bury our rods in the ground 10 feet apart, 3 rods, and again, that's going to give us a great grounding system for our electric fence. We do want to have soil that has a little bit of moisture to it. If you are in a completely dry area, very sandy soil, you might struggle a little bit with the ground. More often than not, when we see issues with electric fence, it's grounding. It's either the fence itself is covered in weeds, maybe a wire is touching a post, it's grounding out, or we don't have a good connection to our ground rods. Everything should be zinc coated or galvanized. We don't want to mix connections. Some are copper and some are galvanized. When we have a discontinuity between various metals, it's not a great thing in terms of corrosion over time. Okay everyone, so now that we've gone over some of the basic components of electric fencing, having that Energizer, we talked about the fence system, and then a little bit about grounding, I want to show you some of those different types of fence systems out there, okay? And so first off, just to mention again, majority of the time we're using this traditional all hot system, we would call it. All of our wires, say we have 4 wires of electric fencing, all 4 of those wires would be hot, okay? One line would come from our Energizer to say our bottom wire, and then we would have a jumper that goes up to each of the additional wires. All of those are hot, okay? And so the way that a traditional electric fence system works is that the animal is connecting to the ground, or you are for that matter, okay? And so you don't need a complete circuit per se like you would think in your house when you're wiring something. And so people that do a lot of 120 work inside houses get a little confused when it comes to electric fencing, because I can shoot out across the pasture here and I don't need to make a loop all the way back to the energizer. I can make one line all the way out 2 miles down this fence line with no return, okay? The concept and the principle behind that is that energizer hooks up to, say, that first wire jumper to each of the others. We have 4 wires that are hooked directly to our energizer, and then the negative terminal on our actual energizer that you would see, our negative terminal, our green ground or that earth one, connects to that grounding system, those 3 galvanized rods that we had inside the ground. And so what happens is you walk over to the electric fence, your feet are touching the ground, you touch that electric fence itself, any one of those 4 wires, and you complete the circuit between the ground itself and the all hot system that you're touching, okay? Same with your horse. Horse walks over, maybe he's got metal shoes on, even more of a ground, walks over, has a really good ground to that earth, that's all tied back to those 3 galvanized rods, and then all of a sudden they touch that top wire and they get shocked with that electric fence. It's a pulse, okay? It's not a constant charge. If you ever had muck boots or gum boots on and you tried to go over and touch an electric fence, maybe you say, oh, there's not much there, because you're not grounded very well, okay? You've got these big rubber boots on that are protecting you from having an inadequate ground. You take those rubber boots off, you stand barefoot on the ground, I guarantee it'll probably sit you down on your rear end, okay? And so that's a little bit about grounding. If we were to do a hot ground system, that might work in an environment where you don't have great soil and not a whole lot of moisture in that soil either. And so the principle there, we would say the top wire and that third wire would be hooked to the energizer and the hot side of it. And then say that second wire down and maybe the fourth wire or whatever that combination is would then be tied over to our grounding rods and that earth terminal on the energizer. And so you're still using the ground. If there's enough actual moisture in the soil, they're still going to utilize that pass through of the ground. But if there's not, and they all of a sudden go down and maybe they touch their head on the top wire and that second wire, they're going to complete the circuit between those 2 wires and then get themselves shocked by that electric fence there. And so that would be this hot ground system, only used in those situations, again, where you don't have a great grounding system from the earth, okay? And so now let's look at some different types of electric fencing that might exist out there. With horses, our biggest concern generally is with visibility, okay? So our horses are more active, they're running around the pasture more so than, say, those sheep or those cows that you see on the neighbor's lot. And so we really want our to see our fencing of any kind, but electric fencing as well. And so you guys will see various tapes out there, various poly ropes, all the way down to just individual wire, okay? Again, I told you before, you could take high tensile wire, even HTP fence, that high tensile polymer, and energize it, okay? Still has to be insulated. We'll continue to talk about that. Anything you use has to be insulated, okay? It can't touch these wooden posts that you see over here, or it's going to ground out. Can't touch this metal fence that you'll see over here momentarily, or it's going to ground out and it's no longer going to be effective, okay? But let's talk about that visibility issue. So we could use the high tensile fence or something like this. This is simply just an aluminum wire, and so that aluminum wire that you guys see right here is a smaller gauge than your typical high tensile, but it conducts electricity very, very well. And so it's just an aluminum fencing wire. We could use this on that offset on the top of our 4-board fence or woven wire. Not too worried about visibility here, and it'll absolutely energize. We could use it as a little jumper to something if we needed to. We might also use insulated wire as well. And so speaking in that regard, this would be a double insulated hard cable. This could be used for a number of things, okay? And so you guys see this right here, okay? And so this has basically the equivalent of a high tensile wire inside this insulated portion right here, okay? And so all we're going to do is basically strip off the end of this, and we might use this as our jumper from our first wire to the second wire, and then from that second to the third, and so on, and then run this insulated portion back down our actual H-brace or our fence post, okay? We also might use this to go underneath a gate, okay? And so we will talk about two different styles that we might utilize for a gate with electric fencing, one that's hot all the way across it, or maybe we use a traditional gate like we've got in our setup between our H braces, and in that regard, we would bury this underneath our gate and connect it from one side to the other, okay? And so a few options that we might use this insulated cable that you guys would see here, okay? So, unspooling. And so beyond that, let's talk a little bit about some various ropes that we would see, okay? These are both Gallagher products. Gallagher makes some various turbo wires that have a various number of metals in them, and other just poly ropes. This would be a very, very small one. I wouldn't use this as that permanent fence, or probably even the portable one necessarily, subdividing pastures. It's a pretty small wire that you guys can see. With visibility of this alone would be somewhat tough, okay? And so that's this wire from Gallagher. It comes on a large spool like this, so you get a lot of it, but it would be great for an offset wire that you might do on top. Now, if we're talking about subdividing that pasture itself, we could use a various poly rope like this, okay? A lot more visibility to it. It's white, it's got occasional orange strands in it, and then you can see the metal throughout it as well. And so this is something that you can easily energize, has quite a bit of visibility to it. We're probably talking about a 1/4 inch in diameter. And so very easily you can see this 1/4 inch to 5/16 by the looks of it, and again, a great visibility. I only have a small sample of this, but we can run a section just to show you how that might work. And then I have two different sizes of tape, okay? This first one is made by Gallagher. This is just a 1/2 inch tape, and it is a great product, definitely adds more visibility. And so you guys can see this as compared to, say, that aluminum wire or even that smaller rope. This has much more visibility to it, okay? And so we'll utilize some of this tape. It's a great example of some electric fence material that you could use with your horses, okay? Aside from this tape, we can also step up to 1.5 inches, okay? Gallagher makes an 1.5 inch tape product, though I couldn't find it in our farm and ranch supply store. And so this is that one product I was telling you that is made by Patriot, but it's going to look very similar, okay? And so this is that 1.5 inch tape product. Again, a great visibility for this, and I'll show you the insulators that would coincide with this to be able to hook this up to your fence. And so whether you choose an aluminum wire or various ropes or various tapes, make sure that you do have something that is visible, that works well with your horses. And then from there you can hook it up to your energizer just the same, okay? So we've talked about those different products, from the wire to the ropes to the tapes. Let's talk about those insulators that you might see associated with them. Granted, you'll see them when we build our section of electric fence here shortly. This offset is something that will snap onto a T-post. I'll show you some various posts here in a bit, but this is just going to snap onto our T-post, and then within this we could easily put, say, this small little rope wire that you see, and then it has a keeper that will slide down through here and basically allow you to offset this wire from your fence itself, okay? That distance. And so very easy to do. You could do this with any of these rope products as well as this aluminum wire. Not so great for any tape product, okay? And so this would be the main offset that we have. As we switch over to some various tapes, I've got two different insulators. One is made for that wooden post, the other one would be made for that T-post. And so these are tape insulators, and so you could use this with either the 1/2 inch or the 1.5 inch. They basically have an open slot on them that snaps closed, and then this just locks onto that T-post of yours, okay? This would be our permanent mount. And so we could take this, it's got 2 holes, one on top and bottom. We're just going to nail this to our post, put our tape down into the slot, and then lock this over the top, okay? And so very easy method to be able to attach that tape. And so you've seen a few ways that you can attach either tape or do that offset. This would be a mechanism to be able to attach that poly rope or say this aluminum wire to our T-post as well, okay? And so we could very easily take this rope that you see here, we could snap this onto our T-post, this goes over top, we've got a little keeper that's going to go into this top hole, just like so, and then this snaps onto our T-post, and we can stretch this all the way down the fence line, okay? So a lot of different options with insulators. If we are going to just attach to, say, this wooden post right here on our H-brace with maybe one of these polys or ropes or this aluminum wire, we can also just use a traditional insulator, okay? These are made by Gallagher as well, and so we can easily take our aluminum wire off of our spool right here. We'll just pull a little bit off momentarily, and so we could take this, thread this through our insulator, and we'll use this in a bit, and then from here we can just do a few twists in it, and now we can take this and go around our post. Maybe we're going to go to the other side of our steel pipe over here just for this demonstration today. We can't ground out on that steel pipe. We need it to be insulated. Easiest way to attach it is going to be just a simple plastic insulator like this, okay? This wire right here can wrap around our metal post, could wrap around our wooden post, and then separate from that, we can then put our poly line in here, or maybe this same aluminum wire, okay? And so these traditional insulators here work great as well, okay? Now, another thing I want to show you that I'll also show you on the fence that are pretty cool are various ways that you might tighten your fences, especially when it comes down to some of these rope products or even some of the steel ones, okay? Even tape in some regards. This is a plastic one that was made by Gallagher. You could use this 1/2-inch tape that you see right here, and if you needed to provide some tension on this 1/2-inch tape, you can put this around this inline insulator. It's basically got a groove for this to come in, wrap around this, and then go back out, and then we can do a few clicks right here and we can tighten this up, okay? So another way that we can also tighten that fence is with these nifty turn wheels, okay? These are tensioners that are made by Gallagher as well. We could put, say, our rope in this slot right here, and then we could easily take this, we'll do it in the fence line here in a bit, we could easily take this and then all of a sudden turn it, apply some tension in the line of our actual fence and get it tight, and then we're going to slip this rod through this wheel right here, and it's going to keep everything in place and keep some tension on our fence. And see, these are some inline tensioners that you could utilize. Once we get our fence section up today, we'll look at some of those in the action, okay y'all? So first part, we're going to go ahead and start installing our electric fence system today, and we're going to install our grounding system first, okay? Doesn't really matter the order. Traditionally, again, I already told you, and you saw that schematic, we would use 3 different grounding rods, 6 feet into the ground, 10 feet apart. We would tie them all together with a wire, and we'd have this excellent grounding system. For the sake of today, we're just doing a quick demo, and we still need a ground. We're just going to put 1 rod in the ground, but you know that we are going to traditionally do 3, make sure we have this excellent grounding system. And so all I've got is our galvanized rod right here, and I've got a T-post pounder. And so easiest way to be able to install this, again, we'll do this somewhat close to our H-braces. We'll put our fence energizer right nearby on a T-post here in a minute. And so I'm going to go ahead and pound this in the ground real quick, and then we'll talk about connecting this ground to our actual energizer here momentarily, okay? Here we go. Okay, y'all, so we've got this pounded in the ground about halfway, about as far as that T-post pounder will go today. Typically, we could take a 4-pound mallet or something like that, drive it in the rest of the way. We're only going to have it sticking out of the ground a short bit, enough to be able to get our ground connecting clamp on top of that. And so now let's go ahead and put our energizer in on a T-post, and we'll connect that to our grounding system. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 different options with connecting that grounding rod to our actual energizer, okay? Again, you've got 3 rods in the ground. They're all connected to each other. Now we connect this last rod to this energizer. One way I'm going to show you this kind of temporary solution that we're going to do today, and then traditionally what I would normally utilize. In a normal situation, we'll set these up here for a second. Normal situation, I would use that insulated wire that you guys previously saw the roll of. We would connect this to our last grounding rod here. I'll show you that ground connection clamp, and then we would take this and then bend this around our green earth terminal right here, and then make this ground connection to the Energizer, go down this post, bury it underground, back to our ground rods, nice and clean, don't have to worry about anybody tripping over it, okay? For sake of doing things today, now again, if you hook this up to your grounding rod, these are really cool ground clamps that you can utilize. And so these traditional ground clamps, they swing open just like so. They'll connect over top of your grounding rod. We'll snug this sucker back down. Again, these are all a galvanized connection here. We don't want to use anything that's copper. We don't want any dissimilar metals. And so we've got that on our ground rod. We've got this bare wire right here. We've got an additional screw that sits out front. We can slip that down in here, tighten down. Again, we've got a nice connection from this ground rod, and then this buries underground back to our Energizer, okay? And so very easy to be able to hook that up in this system here, okay? Now today, what I'm going to show you is just an easy clip-on system. You could use this in a very portable situation, much like at that rodeo or that show, okay? And so we'll pull this off just a second. Okay, now today I'm going to show you basically an easy clip-on system, okay? So this clip-on system already has your ground, the green that we see right here, and our red or our hot that's going to connect to our fence system, okay? All we're going to do in this system, we're going to pull off this little green terminal that's going to connect to our ground. This is going to slip right over top, and then we're going to snug that right back down, okay? This is great for those portable systems when you're just temporarily hooking up that Energizer. So this is going to go onto our grounding rod. We've got a nice solid connection right here, okay? This is in lieu of doing what I previously showed you. This is going to be our hot side, and so connected to our Energizer here, snug down, and then shortly once we build our fence system, we're going to come on over and we'll just clamp this directly to our fence and we'll be energized, okay? So we'll push that through here. Our Energizer is still off at the moment. Once we switch this to on, you'll see this as a green pulse and you'll hear it clicking as well. Okay everyone, so we've got our Energizer in place sitting on our T-post. We've got our grounding system in. Now we just got to build our fencing system, okay? And so we're going to pretend we've got our Energizer sitting here. We're going to run something all the way across to this side of the H-brace. We're going to use our gate that we already put in. So that means we're going to take our insulated wire that you just saw, has that black insulation on it, galvanized wire inside. We're going to run that down, bury that underneath the ground in this gate, run it back up, and then connect it to our fencing system again. Allows us to utilize our traditional gate, and everything is still protected, insulated in the process. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a little mock section of fence from this H-brace over to the pipe fence over there, okay? In this section that is open that you'll see here in a minute, we utilize a number of different posts. We'll use some plastic posts that are equipped for tape. We'll use some T-posts, and then I have a few additional Gallagher products that are pretty cool. Okay y'all, so now I'm going to put a number of different posts in here to connect our wooden H-brace over to our pipe fence over there. We'll use some of those plastic posts, a couple T-posts, and then a few unique Gallagher products, okay? Real quick y'all, these are the two Gallagher products that we'll utilize. This is easy stake, put it in the ground with 1 foot. It's a ring, allows you to put basically anything through. We could put a tape through here, we could put any of those wires, has basically an open slot on it and easily put it in. So you can pick those up at any farm or ranch supply store. This is another product made by Gallagher, a lot more durable, can go in with a T-post pounder. When it's in though, it has some flexibility and it's a lot safer than say that traditional T-post. Take this when it's in, bend it all the way back, let it go, and it's just going to spring back right into place. Any of our T-post clips are going to snap onto this, okay? And so we'll put both of these in the ground as well. Okay, y'all. So we've got a number of different products on. They're all on the ground now. We got some T-posts, we got some plastic posts, we have this unique one made by Gallagher, as well as that initial one I showed you with the little ring, okay? Many of these, you'll note, I didn't quite put that T-post in all the way in the ground. Same with this rod right here. I know how tough they are to get back out. This ground's pretty hard right now. They're only in here temporarily, especially in the middle of our road. And so if I put them in all the way, I'll never get them back out. And so you'll see, again, if you're doing this on your own, you're gonna put them all the way in the ground, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about stringing some various types of fence through these. Okay, everyone. Now we're gonna go ahead and fit everything with some various insulators. I'm gonna put some on our wood here. We'll use everything from some tape, some of the rope, down to some of the aluminum wire. We'll move down onto our T-posts, some of those snaps. I'm gonna quickly fit everything with a number of different insulators that fit those various posts, and then we'll string this fence and we'll show you it in action here, okay? Okay, now that we got a handful of insulators, we're gonna put our offset on top. We're gonna put some tape, we'll put some of that rope, and then we'll put another piece of smaller tape down at the bottom. So just to show you some variety of some things you can do. Obviously you'd be consistent in the type of fence you put up and everything would be likely the same. But again, our whole goal today is a bit of a demo to show you what's out there in some various products. And so now let's go ahead and string everything up. We'll get it tightened onto the other side of the fence, and then we'll connect our energizer, and I'll show you how to test your fence, okay? Okay, everyone, so we're going to terminate onto this metal pipe just for our mock section of fence. And so again, we've got to insulate. Otherwise, if we attached any of our tape or our rope or wire directly to this steel, it would completely ground out and our fence system would be obsolete. And so we're just going to use some of these plastic insulators made by Gallagher. We'll use some of our aluminum wire here, and we'll simply just put this together. So we're just going to feed this through one side of the insulator, take it in half, and then from there, just simply twist it back on itself. Take a few turns, you're good to go. This part now is going to go around our steel pipe. Again, doesn't really matter in terms of a termination. We could terminate our tape in here. It might not look the prettiest as it terminates, but as long as it's not touching that pipe, it'll be just fine. Let's do our offset wire. This was our offset wire. We've got a ratchet tightener on the other end of this offset wire, so we'll tighten this through here, and then we can additionally pull any slack from the other end. Okay, y'all, so we can go ahead and look at what we've got so far. We've got our offset wire. Again, it doesn't have to look pretty. It's all going to work as an electric fence right now. Offset wire, you can see, runs all the way down through our offset connections on our T-post and then over to our insulator. So that's going to work there. We've got a stretcher or strainer sitting on here. This one just is a wire that simply loops around our post right here, and then allows us to easily put a few cranks on it and get good tension on that. This is our 1/2-inch one. Again, for ease today, not hurt anything, we have it just tied around the insulator that is nailed into the post. That insulator is pretty solid, nailed in. Goes through again our T-posts, our plastic posts, and then all the way down to that insulator, not grounding out anywhere along the way. And then here at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and put our 1.5-inch tape, and that'll be the last one that we utilize today, okay? And so let's take our 1.5-inch tape. We're going to put this in here again just for ease today. I'll show you some other termination ways. We will attach this here, snap that on. Again, as long as it's not touching a post, it's not grounding out anywhere, let's go ahead and run this all the way down our entire fence, and we will attach it in various sections to our T-post clips. And so here we'll undo our T-post clip, snap it back in, run it past our plastic posts. We will run it inside those. Okay, and we've got that all the way down to the end. I'm going to go ahead and tie this onto our insulator. Okay, y'all, so we just ran our 1.5" tape. It's on our insulator that is nailed into our post. We've run it all the way down through our T-post clips. It's insulated all the way on our plastic posts, and then tie it off on the insulator on the metal pipe. And so key here, not touching any wood posts. Again, you can make it look cleaner in your own. Ours is just a quick demo today to show you some different materials that exist. We have this thin rope wire. Again, works great as an offset. We've got some 1/2" tape, and we've got some 1.5" tape. Only other ones that we showed you today, that larger poly braid, it works great. I simply don't have enough of it to run today. And then our aluminum wire could be the same as this top offset here, okay? And so now let's go ahead and hook up our energizer and we'll test it. Okay, everyone. So just for simplicity and ease today, I went ahead and just took our grounding rod and our T-post and moved them down to this side. Classically, we said we were going to run it up to that side of the H-brace, bury our wire underneath that traditional gate, and then connect it across this H-brace, not to quite the end like we did, and run it down the line. But again, just a quick demo today. And so real quick, we're going to go ahead and show you how we could connect this to any individual wire. We could easily take our hot right here in our clip. We could clip this onto this top wire right here, turn our energizer on. It is now, if you guys can see, flashing green, okay, pulsing, and we can hear that, okay? And so this is now hot right here. We can go ahead and read it. We'll also show you how we might jump from one down to the next, okay? So let's say we want to take this and connect this to, very easily, our 1/2" tape, okay? This is a 1/2" tape made by Gallagher. Now, I've got 2 other clamps that work great for connecting to various tapes as well as various ropes. And so this is just an easy poly tape clamp, and it's going to allow us to jump from one to the other. It's really tough. Again, you could take a aluminum wire like we showed you before, wrap it around here. There's some termination ends that work great on rope and on a high tensile or an aluminum wire, but when you get to the tape, it's a little bit tougher maybe to connect that energizer sometimes. And so let's just show you how some of these poly tape connectors work. And so this one that you guys see here comes apart, and then we're easily just going to swing this open, run this over top of our poly tape, and then from here we will run our bolt back through. And this is all steel, and it has great contact with the entire surface area of that poly tape. And so we can snug this down on the back side. This is on there now, and all we have to do is we'll use our same section that we cut before. This is nice insulated section. We can undo this wing nut that has the washer on it, and we're just going to slip this wire right behind that washer, okay, and then snug it down. And so now we've got a great termination onto that poly tape right there. We could take this, bend this over if we wanted to, take some staples, run this up the post of our H-brace, and then we could connect it to any one of these from now, okay? And so this is hot right now, so we're gonna go ahead and turn that off for just a second, and we're gonna finish connecting some of this. So I'm just gonna remove this just to show you. Maybe we want to connect this to our either 1/2" tape or our rope poly up here. And so this is an easy connector that you could use for a number of ropes. And so this just requires a Phillips screwdriver sitting in the top of it. And so we'll loosen up this connector. And then from there, we can then clamp this over top of our rope. And so we will put this on our rope here. And then just for ease, I'm going to put our wire in here as well. Okay. And so this connector now attaches to that rope, and then also to our insulated wire that goes down to our tape. We've got a connection very easily that we could run up this post and staple it to, okay? And so let's go ahead and connect our energizer. Let's show you how we might test some of this, okay? Okay, y'all. So we've got our fence system in place. Right now we've got our ground connected to the ground rod, our earth, and then we've got this red clip, our hot wire essentially, connected to the 1/2-inch tape in this case. We might move it around and connect it to various systems. We could connect it to this rope, which is then in turn connected down to the 1.5 inch. We could do jumpers up to each one of these and connect all three. Generally, you have similar wires, and so it's a lot easier to connect one to the next. Again, our whole point today was just to show you some different products that are out there. This is a great fence voltmeter by Gallagher, and so this is easily going to pop out. This is going to go into the ground itself, and then we're going to touch this probe onto our fencing system, and we're going to see what it comes back as. And so let's go down here. We're just going to push this into the ground best we can. Okay, and then if we set that on here, right now we're reading about 7.3, 7.4 kilovolts. Okay, so we've got a pretty good charge on this fence right here. Okay, we could take this, move it up to the top wire. Again, everything is insulated. We're not grounding out anywhere. In this scenario, we've got a very clean fence. There's no weeds growing up, touching the fence, anything of that nature. We can then take this, set this on our top wire. We're reading about 7.8 kilovolts. Okay, and so again, great connection sitting on this fence. We could come down to our poly tape here. Again, this is already just a jumper down from the top one, and you can see that jumper is truly working. We're reading about 7.9 kilovolts right here. Okay, and so we've got a very good, easily energized fence. You guys hopefully understand how to install that electric fence system. We've got our charger in place. We've got a grounding system. You can imagine how much better this fence system would be if we had our 3 grounding rods 10 feet apart, 6 feet in the ground. But it just shows you, with a single ground rod only about half in the ground right now, we still have a pretty good charge on this fence. So one last thing I want to show you in relation to gates, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Okay, everyone, last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was, again, gates. And so we already mentioned that we could use this traditional gate that we have here. We could use this insulated cable. We could easily attach it to our electric fence on this side of our H-brace, run it down, bury it underground, back up this side, and then connect it to our fence again. Our traditional gate works fine. Nothing is grounding out. It all stays insulated. The other thing that we can do is we can utilize these basically electric fence handles. Okay, and so we can use these 3-way post mounts. This one is able to snap onto a T-post, or it also has holes in the top and bottom where it could be nailed to a wood post like this. Okay, this is insulated obviously from either the wood post or that T-post. This can nail into this post here. Our electric fence attaches to that. Our fence itself connects here, and then this handle is nice because it has a built-in spring in it. Okay, and so you can see that spring in action, and we can come across, stretch this gap, nail one into this side, and then connect our fence handle to this post. Okay, and so nice thing about that, everything stays insulated. Your fence is hot across that entire gap, and so maybe you're going around a hay shed or some other area where you don't want a traditional gate. Okay, you want an electric gate across the entire span, and so these mounts with this handle right here work really well to be able to achieve that. Okay, and so with that, that's everything we've got today. Our Energizer is still going. We got lots of mock sections of fence. I'm going to go ahead and start tearing down. I hope you guys learned a good bit about electric fencing today. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.